to the session. It is with greatest pleasure and honor to bring a distinguished panel of journal editors to share their perspectives and experience with the audience and answer questions pertinent to related to the publication quality, reliability, and data science. So today we will have right now 4, 5, yes, and so we will have Dr. Jianjun Shi from IIE Transactions, Dr. Fugee Tsung from Journal of Quality Technology, and Dr. Peihua Qiu from Technometrics, and Dr. Douglas Montgomery from Quality Reliability International, and Dr. Peter Parker from Quality Engineering. And so since our first panelist, Dr. Jianjun Shi, hasn't come yet, so Dr. Fugee Tsung is the second panelist. So can you please come? And so the format of this panel is each of the panelists will share their perspectives regarding the publication in about 5 to 10 minutes, and then it will open to the floor for questions. And okay, let's welcome our first panelist.
Okay, my name is Fugee Tsung. I'm from Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. And today, I'm very happy to have a chance to introduce JQT. I assume most of you know this journal. Okay, I prepared some general slides and go through. I kind of guessing what you want to hear. And then later, if any question, you can ask later. JQT actually, I think they founded by Nelson since 1969. Have been decades, and then Montgomery is one of the pioneers, and then go through that. And I'm right now is the editor elect, and then in 2016 I'm the editor in chief. And we have the board. It's a board member. Usually the way we run that is a little bit different from the other journal. And as the editor in chief, I receive paper, and then I will board. But the board is served like a professional reviewer. So the paper I decide, well, sometimes I will reject most of them. Okay, so I like one third to half. I think it simply doesn't fit the topic that, and I will say nice way. But I think my point is that I don't want to drag that for too long. If I think that even after review is not quite unlikely to get accepted, and then I will say that. I don't want to waste each other's time, so I will appreciate, and I will do it very quick. And after that, 1/3 to close to half, and then I will send. I will choose one from the board, and then one external reviewer based on the subject, at least 2. Yeah, together. Sometimes need more, but at least 2.
You have a big database of reviewers.
That's the problem, and I already.
No.
Okay, since you're getting the point that, so you can mention one paper actually need at least 2 reviewers. So mathematically, if you submit paper, you need to be responsible. In the future, if I ask you to review the paper, I will expect you to say yes. Because if you expect publish one paper, you should serve one paper, review one paper. I think that's a simple math, and sometimes if you just say no to review a paper and you expect the paper to be accepted, I think it's just not that fit. So it's both ways. I expect you to expect the volunteer to review the paper, etc. And the review time, I think right now the statistic like 80 or 90% is within 4 months. And people probably feel longer, but actually that's the statistic. 80% are within 4 months. And then, but still sometimes drag long. If you up to 6 months, we'll consider as a delay. So if your paper, you find out even 6 months is no response, you can ask me, I will try to find out.
So 4 months from
you submit. Yeah, that's
a rejection letter, right?
Right. And then some decision. you probably should expect that in 4 months' time you should know that. So okay, so that basically that's the review process. Sometimes take longer, but we'll try that. And then part of the reason that sometimes it's a variation is that we right now don't have the online submission system. We're working on that. Actually, we already start the process to do outsourcing by the Technometrics. But that probably will happen within a year. So we'll see that. After that, probably will make things easier in terms of the review paper, also for your submission.
So when you send the paper to a potential reviewer, you just send an abstract, or they have an access to basically the whole paper?
I send paper to the reviewer, including the board member. They will see the whole thing, but we remove the name, so it's a double bind.
No, I mean, before they make a decision. The reason I'm asking is, like, I'm reviewing papers for, like, I don't know, 15 different journals, and everybody handles it differently. And in some, you can actually see the paper before you make a decision, because sometimes they send me things, it's like, it's not really my specialty or something.
Our reviewer, I think our reviewers see the full paper. It's not just abstract.
And sometimes abstract doesn't really help you understand it, just make a decision. Is it okay if I'm asking questions?
Can we save the questions until each panelist finish introducing their journals?
Okay.
So anyway, we'll have
Okay, so
open to the floor for questions.
Okay, and then this one is just you see a website, and this is kind of copy from there. I will not read through that. JQT is one of the few journals that actually kind of cross-discipline. So it's been listed on IE or manual science, and also the statistics. So it's been recognized in different areas. We're quite proud of it. And then the other interesting thing is that actually it's quite a lot of subscription. So actually it's a lot of people reading this journal, including practitioners. So you get thousands of them. Before I have a short time working in Ford Motor, actually they put on bookshelf, they also have a JQT for actually practitioners to read that. And that's part of the reason when we review paper, at the same time we quite emphasize on methodology, but at the same time the readability actually is one of the concerns. Sometimes people think the paper is very good, but because of readability we can reject the paper. We will expect that even the practitioner can read, can make use of that. So that's one of the concerns, a little different from the other journal. So that is the area. The conference I purposely put in here is that now we sponsor more and more the JQT invited session. So I just let you aware of this. I also encourage you to attend. And something we've been running for years is the Spring Research Conference. And next year will be in May in Chicago. And well, for technical, this also running for years. I don't know where is it yet. Probably you know that.
Minnesota. Yeah,
so it's usually in October 2016. Informs also we sponsor for years. Like we just have that this morning, right before lunch. This one is new. This one is new. This international conference on interface between statistics and engineering. This one will be Italy. It's a nice place, so I say yes. Just say yes. And this one also been running several times. It's quite a unique conference that emphasizes on interface between statistics and engineering. So I think they want to find people in industry and statistics. Actually, Coxway asked me to organize a invited session. I think it's a good thing. I haven't told the board members, but who will run that. And I just heard that the MBs also have interest to invite JQT. And if they invite, I think I probably would say yes as well to the European business, industrial business statistics. So I think it's more get awareness. And they also have interesting paper. Okay, just give me a few more minutes. So far, I think most people know that what JQT is about and then what kind of paper to submit. That's how I received. I've been taking care of that for several months. And however, that I always receive the paper I expected. So I hope they can extend the scope a little bit. And how to do that, I've been thinking about that. Last night, the JSM board meeting, we have some discussion, and board member gave me some good advice. One is the spatial issue. So we actually put together, we're going to have 3 special issues coming up. It's not yet finalized, and then very soon I will, hopefully we'll finalize soon. But this is kind of the first time I will show you these 3. The first I tried to put together a statistic process control for big data stream. It's simply that the data structure changed from high speed to high variety data stream, and there is a lot of unique problems, and we're going to run that. We have not yet finalized the content, even the title, but I think we'll go for that. So you will probably see that very soon in 2016. And this one, again, the title is not yet finalized, but this want to emphasize the big data meeting reliability, especially in maintenance and warranty. I see a lot of change. Probably need to go back to revisit this method because the trend of the data-rich environment. So if I Avenue, actually he's willing to help because in IBM, he's saying he's actually running something. It's very related from industry point of view. So I invite them to help out. And third thing is quality engineering. The title later probably was something like quality engineering in advanced manufacturing. Advanced manufacturing now, not just in US, emphasize the smart manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. In Europe, talk about industry 4.0. So I think we need to revisit the method we are using. So there are several topics that's quite timely, and hopefully we can stimulate, just tell everybody that we're also interested in this new area, whatever that is. Hopefully we can get some like a paper from the new area. So Bianca and the Thanker and Chang Wang actually right now quite deep in the 3D printing, so I should invite him as a guest editor. And then, so I will just let you have some flavor that we try to expand the scope a little bit. Okay. I'll stop here.
Our second panelist is Dr. Jianjun Shi.
My name is Jianjun Shi from Georgia Tech. I'm the faculty editor for this issue, IIE Transactions for Quality Reliability Engineering. So in this journal, we have 4 departments or 4 focus areas. One is process monitoring diagnosis, another reliability engineering, design experiments, process optimization, and system information and control. Also, we have some special issues. If you have some good ideas want to propose, feel free to propose to us. We say we want to write paper, we want to be successful, and how we say a paper is a successful paper. For this journal, because this industrial engineering, quality reliability engineering, so we say paper should have a well-motivated by real problems and issues observed in practice. So it's the problem motivated by real engineering problems, and the assumptions should be aligned well with motivation. I think that's a key component. Another one is that we emphasize methodology development. So methodology should have mathematical rigors. And of course, the paper should be well written, and the findings conclusion should be useful to engineer, production, supply chain managers. And also, we want paper making impact, so it should improve the practice or expand for future research. So those are the good papers we're looking for. And what are the preferred papers? So we want the paper address some common occurring important IE problems that has a little attention in the past. Or some papers already develop something new and leading to more research to come into this area. I think that's a good thing. And also we want models with new emerging technology problems, solutions, and have some insights. That could be a good one. And normally we say, I say 3 pillars. new problem which have not been well studied, you will formulate problem to write paper. And in a way, I say the paper is not well written in terms of a not complete solution, but very well description of new problems and modeling. I think that's a good paper we like to publish because this may not be a solution, but leading to more research. Person working on that kind of problem. Another one is the new methodology. The new methodology is not necessarily absolutely new as new mathematic, statistic, optimization tools, but some techniques from other disciplines can be useful for our IE community, and they introduce this technique to this community. So I think that's also a good problem. And another thing, types of problem, the new types of tools, new sensing capability, new digital sensing networks, that kind of new capability leading to IE problem becoming more challenging and solve the real problems. That's good topics to publish. And also we like to invite the review paper, the literature review, survey type of paper. If you do so, you should have some insight on this such kind of papers. Not only saying what can be published, what are they, but also saying what are the limitations, what are the potential future research directions. I think that could be a good review paper. And also good review paper leading to more citations. That's also good for the journal. And the nature of IE is interdisciplinary research. So it's a combination of many things, not only the engineer problem, but how we solve the problem, statistical optimization, control, stochastic process. So all the different tools work on engineering quality and reliability problems. That's something nice to do. This one is from the annual report of this publisher. And this data is for IIE transactions, not just for the focused issue. So last year's impact factor is 1.37, and the acceptance rate is 20%. And I like to say this 20% could be much lower because we ask major revisions. Sometimes paper revised 3 times. So that kind of things also considered as acceptance. This author space, 44% from Asia, 33 North America, 18 from Europe, and so on. So those are the author base. And the review cycle, most of paper, within 30 days, we can get a quick response. And also, most of these papers get rejected. That's why. The process is like this. The process is like this. Once we get the paper, as a faculty editor, I receive this one. I will read the paper first. So that's like first review. I reject 48% of the paper. That's a statistic told me. So those are the papers either does not fit or not well written or something I can give a quick feedback and then let them say fix those kind of problems and then resubmit. So those like a quick feedback the authors can either decide, revise, come back, or go to some other places. It's not a waste of the reference time. And this is, and then if the paper is okay, and also during the process, if not in my domain, intuition not so good. I'll ask some department editor or some people in this area to give me comments, quick comments. I said, not complete review, say how to make it better, but tell me if it's worth to further review by other people. So that's normally like 1 or 2 weeks I get feedback. So most of paper are okay. Say we want to have like 3 months is stressful. If you submit paper didn't hear anything, let me know after 2 months. Say, just like write email, say I want to check for the status. This remind me go back, either remind the department editor or social editor or the referee themselves. We do have some outliers. That's something very not good. We try to eliminate this outlier. That's all for me. Thank you.
Our third panelist is Dr. Peihua Qiu.
I'm the editor of Technometrics. And I don't know whether you know Technometrics or not. I hope yes. When I give talks in other regions of the world, some people don't know Technometrics. For example, when I give talks in China, in some countries in Europe, people don't know Technometrics. And Technometrics actually has is an official journal of ASA and ASQ. So now looks like originally financially it was fully supported by ASQ, but nowadays my impression is that it's getting far and far away from ASQ. Almost everything is handled by ASA. And started in 1959, and the first editor was Stuart Hunter, and the name Technometrics actually was given by R.A. Fisher, because before that, 1943 or something, we have biometrics. So biometrics is about statistical methodologies for biomedical research. So Fisher thinks that, well, probably we need to have another journal for engineering and those areas. So the mission is here. We want to contribute to the development and the use of statistical methods in physical, chemical, and engineering sciences. Actually, 5 or 4 years ago, we stopped at here, engineering sciences. Then we added this information science and technology about 2 or 3 years ago, because the world is changing, right? So we thought that information science and technology is also a big part of engineering right now. And I also listed the impact factor because when I raised this impact factor issue in editorial board several times, most people say, no, we are prestigious journal, so we don't care about the impact factors. And to me, I think as an editor, I think this is an important aspect of a good journal. A good journal, you need to have a good impact, especially for young researchers. Why many people don't know this journal? Because originally the impact factor is quite low. People don't care about this. So to me, this is still an important aspect of a good journal. And the number of papers we received in recent several years are listed here. So around 200, I think the trend you can see. Yeah, it's around 200 each year. And how fast the review decisions, now it's quite fast, but originally it's very slow. I remember my own paper. My first paper was published in 1998. I have 1 or 2 papers and another paper 2001, I remember. Each of those papers spent about 3 years. Each round of review 1 year, then several rounds of reviews, and then take about, on average, my first 4 or 5 papers, each paper will get about 3 years from submission to publish. And nowadays you can see we have 3 levels of review. Level 1 means I just reject a paper by myself. So I reject about 30-something percent of papers. And the level 2 means that I thought this paper, for example, I think it's okay, or that the area of that paper is not in my expertise or something like that. Then I send it to associated. Then associated think it's not good, so associated can make a decision directly. And the third level of review is we send the associate editor decided to send the paper out for formal review. So you can see I rejected about 30-something percent of papers, so on and so forth. And so the rejection rate is probably a little bit below 20. Rejection rate probably is a little bit higher than 80%. So we accept probably around the 20% papers as well. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the review time. The previous slide is about the rejection rate. So nowadays the review times actually is quite fast. Level 1, the median is about 5 days. The unit is days. I usually handle papers fast. Within about a week, I will make a decision whether I need to reject it immediately or send it to the associate editor. And for associate editors, associate editor will usually take about 23 days to make a decision. Okay, and then for the even for level 3 reviews, we take about 82. Medium is about 82 days, a little bit less than 3 months. So Technometrics now is very fast to review papers. So that's the take-home message. So those are the survival curves. Very fast. And sometimes fast may not be good. Most news, for example, if I handle paper, if I send you an email within a week, usually just reject. So that's all. And I can say some other things. People may ask me, after you receive a paper, how you can decide whether you need to reject a paper immediately or not. Well, I myself treat Technometrics as the flagship journal in this area. So I thought that papers published in this journal need to be good papers. So what kind of papers I think are good papers? As Jianjun mentioned, novelty. And I reject many papers in quality. Quality control is my area because I know those stuffs. And so many people complain about me. They said, why you reject my papers? I'm a big shot. How can you reject my papers? Well, sometimes I think the novelty may not be enough. So then there are so many interesting problems, actually, fundamentally important problems in SPC or something like that. And if you always talk about Shuha charts and try to adjust the control limit this little bit, this way, that way, I think the novelty may not be good enough. And sometimes another important issue I think important is that justifications. So novelty, another one is justification. As Jianjun mentioned, we needed to have new methodologies, new problems. But if we propose a new methodology for a new problem, whether your method has been well justified or not. And many people, for example, send me a paper without any simulation studies. That's not good. It's difficult to imagine without any simulation studies your paper has been well justified. That's difficult to imagine. And also Technometrics, as similar to other journals in this area, we emphasize on the connection with real world applications. So usually Technometric paper need to include a real data example. And some people just use that real data example as a decoration. That's not good enough to me. People just propose a method, give me an application problems, and tell me how to use the method in this application. Without, for example, check all the assumptions in this data set, without tell people all the details how we can use the method, that's not good enough. So to me, the novelty, the justification, those two are the most important for me to make a decision. Thank you very much.
Our next panelist is Dr. Montgomery.
Okay. Okay, I'm Doug Montgomery from ASU, and the journal that I edit is Quality and Reliability Engineering International. This is published by the Inner Science Division of Wiley. It was founded in '84. There are two chief editors, Arnott Brumbacher and I, are the current two chief editors. Arnott has been around as a chief editor about 10 years, and I've been one of the chief editors since 2000. So we both have a lot of experience with the journal. We are a journal that I think focuses on both the engineering and statistical aspects of quality and reliability field. We try to publish a wide variety of things, methodological papers, review papers, applications of new methodology, case studies. What makes a good case study for our journal is either an application of some fairly standard methods in a really new environment, something that people haven't seen before, or applications of new techniques that have just been recently seen in the literature. And so we're looking for things that have novelty. Current impact factor is 1.19. We have 8 issues per year. We probably publish more issues per year than most of the other journals. We typically have between 8 and 10 papers per issue. 2 or 3 of the 8 issues are often special issues. We have had special issues for INVIS for a number of years, and we have had special issues for informs on occasion. In fact, we're trying to do another special issue for informs this year. We do have other special issues devoted to specific topics. We've had a special issue this year on non-parametric methods and process monitoring. And so individuals that have ideas for special topics are always encouraged to contact 1 or 2 editors. And we'll see if we can do something that is useful. The special issues are always handled by a guest editor, and they have essentially complete control over that issue. Arnaud and I don't really meddle in the special issues. We kind of leave it up to the guest editors to handle that. And here are some of the more recent special issues. The special issue on non-parametric SPC is cited here. And the 2014 special issue on data mining was one that was based on informs. One of my colleagues at ASU, Jane Lee, was the special editor for that issue, and she arranged that through the data mining people at informs. And you see there's a couple of special issues for INVIS here. One of them is the last year of INVIS, and then one of them was actually a couple of years ago. The guest editors sort of got behind schedule and didn't get things done in time, which is always kind of bad. We try to make sure that the conference-based special issues appear in the next volume. So if, for example, we're doing a special issue for informs this year, I would want that special issue to appear in the second half of 2016. That's the schedule we try to operate. We have at present an editorial board made up of about 33 people. I think we may have added a couple since I put this slide together. There are 10 countries represented. It's a very international editorial board. 13, or about a third of the members, are from North America. There's a very strong international readership of this journal. Historically, a lot of the readers were from Europe and Asia. The journal started with Wiley's European operations, which are run out of Chichester, England. And so the initial circulation was dominated very much by Europe and Asia. Although that's changing. There's a very large presence now of people in North America that read the journal, and a lot of North American and South American authors that submit papers to the journal. So we've seen a big change in that direction. The target mathematical level is very much consistent with JQT, or maybe the IEEE Transactions on Reliability. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that journal. That's a very prestigious reliability journal. There's the website. There are instructions to authors there. All the volumes are available electronically. There's also an early view section on the website. So once your paper is accepted and it's been typeset and proofread, it goes into early view. And for authors, that's very helpful because it gives you a much better chance of having your work seen and cited by other researchers. And I think that's a feature that is a very good thing about the journal. Our review cycle time target is 4 months. We hold to that pretty close. We do have the system that we use, Manuscript Central, does have I call it an annoying feature, that if the reviewer is late, they start getting annoying emails, like get it in. And then the second one is get it in really fast. And then the third one is if you don't get it in, someone's going to come to your house and break your leg. so we have several tiers of letters that we send to reviewers. Currently, we have probably about 3 issues in backlog. People always ask me, when is my paper going to appear? And I tell them, go to early view, count the number of papers on early view, and divide by 10. And that'll probably give you a good idea when it's going to appear. That'll tell you how many issues out you are. We get about 500 papers a year. This year it may be more, and the number has been going up. And that does not count the special issues. That does not count the special issues. That's only the papers submitted to the regular issues of the journal. We divide them roughly equally between ourselves. Arnott has some skills and some knowledge and reliability that I don't. I know next to nothing about reliability engineering, and he will probably tell you that he knows next to nothing about experimental design. So it's an even swap. We sort of divide things up that way. We typically send a paper to one ERB member and then guest reviewers. I find my guest reviewers from people that have previously published in the journal. If you ever publish in our journal, we have you electronically captured in Manuscript Central forever. And so you may find yourself getting a paper just because you published one in the journal. I also look at the references of the papers that are submitted, and I'll very often select a reviewer, or maybe even 2 reviewers, from the references of the paper you submit. We do allow authors to recommend reviewers. I don't use those too much because you may be aware that there's a lot of instances of reviewer fraud going around now, and I'm very sensitive to that. So usually I try to be pretty independent about choosing reviewers. I personally reject at least half of the papers that I get. But the overall acceptance rate by the time we get through the review process is in the 20% range, roughly in the 20% range. Why do I decline papers? Most people want to know this. Okay? And so here's why I often decline papers. It might be a great paper, but it's just not for us. If your paper has theorems and proofs and lemmas and propositions, it comes right back to you because we don't publish papers in that style. Okay? If it has no practical example or application, it comes right back to you again. Not within the scope of the journal. I get papers that should be submitted to journals in other fields. I don't know why they send it to us. I also get papers that it's pretty clear to me that the author has never even seen the journal. It's not written in the style. It's not written the way QRI papers are written. And by the way, some of them are really awful too. The writing is just awful. If I read the abstract and introductory section of your paper and find misspelled words or grammatical error, I just reject it. So you need to make sure that your papers are well written and the use of English is correct. Sometimes I reject papers because they're case studies, but there's absolutely no innovation. It's yet just another application of the 2 to the 3 factorial. We know how to do those. Okay, we don't need case studies on that. Or it may be just another domain Six Sigma project at the XYZ company, and we don't really publish that. There are other journals that would like to have those papers, and it's just not for us. As I say, I love case studies, but they must have some technical innovation. It's either got to be an application of an existing technique in a really kind of nifty environment that maybe you wouldn't have thought of, or it's got to be some new technique that's just recently been published. And this is an innovative use of that technique. Here are a few papers from recent issues. And I've selected these from basically the last couple of years. And you can see we have a range of things on reliability, on measurement systems, experimental design, process monitoring and control. That last paper was a case study paper. A very, very nice paper about a new measurement tool for use in the textile industry, and then how they went about determining the capability of that measurement system and getting it to work reliably. So that's a little bit about the journal, and I think like the rest of the authors, I'm going to be around for questions. And anything you want to know about the journal, I'll try to tell you.
Our next panelist is Dr. Peter Parker from Editor-in-Chief of Quality Engineering.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. And so I'm Peter Parker, and I'm the current Editor-in-Chief of Quality Engineering for a couple more months. And the incoming editor is Murat Testik from Turkey. Quality Engineering is a journal that's jointly published by ASQ and Taylor and Francis. And we have an editorial review board of about 35 members, something in that range. You know, I find this sort of an interesting position I have going last. And I hear all the overlap among all these different journals. And you're probably going to, you know, if you sit through the whole session, you're thinking there's a lot of overlap, right? And that's true. And so I want to try to point out maybe a few things that are distinctive. This is the aims and scopes of our journal, and I just want to point a few things. One, this is a journal directed to practitioners and researchers. I think maybe some of the other journals might focus a bit more toward researchers. We talk about practitioner examples or practical examples, but this journal really, our impact is a lot based on practitioners sending us emails saying that was a really great paper and I was able to use it. I was able to apply it right away. But we do also publish a lot with researchers, and so that's kind of a balancing act for us as a journal to do both. And then I want to point you down in here, what type of papers? Well, we think of ones that are ready for immediate industrial application. That's one criteria. And the second is examples of techniques uniquely employed. Very similar to what Doug just said about QARI. It doesn't necessarily have to be a new method, but in an innovative application, a unique, innovative application. We're very broad in terms of the areas in which we publish. Well, I'll skip to this slide now. So the background of the journal, as I said, jointly published, about 28 years of publication. It went through a significant revitalization, I'll call it, about 10 years ago. If you had looked at quality engineering before, say 2003, I think you would see a significant difference in quality engineering over the last 10, 12 years. And one of those is obviously in the last 3 years into the journal citation reports in 2012. This is only our third year. Our current impact factor is 0.553, and that's lower than what you've seen in the other journals. But for quality engineering, we're quite proud of the fact that we are now in the citation index. And we expect that number to go up. You know, as anybody knows, there's a bit of a delay time in the index and impact factors, and we expect that number to go up. So my next slide, I want to show you just a list of all the topic areas that we publish in. And quite simply, it's almost every area of industrial statistics, industrial applications, and statistics. We're very broad in that way. We have a Big 10 many different opportunities for people to publish their work. And I would say traditionally we've done more in statistical process control and experimental design. If you pick up a recent issue or two, you might see that somewhat heavily, but that's not necessarily where we want to be. In fact, we're trying to be as broad as possible. So we publish 4 issues a year, and we also publish special issues, and I've put a couple of them up. One in 2012, which was very well received in statistical engineering. The guest editor of that was Christine Anderson-Cook and Lou. They did a fantastic job of putting together quite an exhaustive issue that goes from discussions through education, statistical engineering education, case studies, historical perspectives on statistical engineering. It's really a nice issue in 2012. We also, the last 3 years, have published a special issue based on the Stu Hunter Research Conference. Many of you may or may not be aware of that conference. It just started in 2013. I guess we published the first one in 2014. It's modeled after the Gordon Conference. It has a format of 6 main speakers and spread over 3 days. And those speakers then have discussants. So it's a very excellent opportunity for an in-depth discussion of papers, and that is reflected in the special issues as well. So these are what we consider to be the leaders in the fields that are speaking, that are the main speakers and discussants. If you go back and look, it's the January issue of 2014, 2015, and the next issue that comes out of Quality Engineering in 2016 will be on this. And I think you'll find that an interesting article. It's one that's future-looking, directions of industrial statistics. It is state-of-the-art, but it's more about this vision, directions, areas, and many of the topics you heard spoken about by the other editors are those type of topics that would be featured in that Hunter conference, things that are new and up and coming. We also just published a special issue on reliability this year, and I was very happy that we had an invited session here yesterday that featured that topic of reliability. Reliability is an area where we're trying to draw more papers in that area. And that's all I have. So,
Great, thank all the panelists and for the introduction. Now it's open to the floor for questions. Before you ask the question, please address specifically to which editor would you like to ask. Okay.
Is it necessary or you can make a question?
Yeah, you can ask any question. Yes, you have a question, right?
Actually, it's kind of a common question. Is that okay?
Sure.
The thing is, like basically all the journals presented here, they claim that they're looking for papers with specific practical applications. But unfortunately, it's not always the case. I mean, I'd like to compliment Professor Montgomery because I think Quality and Reliability Engineering International and another journal, which was not mentioned here, Reliability Engineering and System Safety, basically kind of 2 key
research. And also, it's important to focus why we want to write it, especially for Technometrics. For other journals, I don't know. Probably we can just analyze data set and don't need to. So depending on the specific journal for Technometrics, I think the justification is needed, in my opinion.
Not much to add, but I think almost all journals emphasize both methodology need to have innovation, also practically practitioner need to be finding useful. But effectively, actually there's some conflict, right? How we try to see some balance and one both. So that's why the acceptance rate is getting very low. I think most below 20%. And still, we need to make a judge when we, of course, they all claim that they have a practical application also with methodology. We need to judge is that imaginary or is that really useful? At the same time, methodology is sound or not. So we see the gap At the same time, we want to see how we close them. There's a gap.
I have a quick question on the special issue distribution, because each journal has special issues. Through which channels do you distribute the news of the special issue costs? Because sometimes some of the special issue you mentioned, we didn't see from the email list of quality, statistic, and reliability. And so in the website, there's of course, we will list the special issues. Also, through what other channels do we distribute the news of special issues?
We published, I organize two special issues. One is a special issue on systems informatics. The other special issue will appear quite soon is on big data analysis. And we basically publish the news in ASA web pages and ASQ web pages and ASA newsletters and ASQ news. So we publish, and also we send emails, send this call for papers by emails to different organizations and something like that. That's the way we distribute news.
Now, we've always relied on guest vendors to give us some ideas about how to advertise the special issues for QRI. And for informs and for members, it's fairly easy because they have organizations with members and membership lists and sections, and so you can get them through newsletters and through email. In some cases, it's not as easy as that. The special issue on non-parametric control charts, fortunately, was organized by an individual, Chuck Work, who's an expert in the field, and so he knew everybody. He said, "Let me start, contacting people." He really spread quite a broad net of people. We got papers from a lot of real experts in the field. It was really quite good. But and of course, we will publish the call for papers in the journal, and we will post the call for papers on the journal website. So that's sort of how we do it. But it's important to get the word out that you're going to do a special issue.
I think for JQT, I haven't seen that because it's really the first time to show.
Yeah, I have a question about the JQT.
And then in the history, it seems that for whatever reason, JQT usually don't have special issue. Never seen any JQT special issue. Even up to now, I still don't know why. But anyway, we'll have special issue anyway. And right, so this is still a draft, but that will come out. Hopefully, it'll come out in January issue. So in January issue, you will see the whole detail. And also, I will find out through all the channels. JQT is a joint journal of the ASQ and also ASA as well. So I will throughout these two societies to send out information. I believe most of you will see.
Thank you. We have one more quick question.
I'd like to know about the opinion and strategy of the journals about the open access. Just about that, if you can explain a little bit more what happened with this new thing.
So the question is about the open access
Yes.
policy.
I'd like to know what if the journals are open to open access, and if they are the opinion about that this subject.
Well, Technometrics, after the paper got accepted, we posted on a web page before it's in print. In that specific period, after the paper got accepted, before the paper got printed, it's open to everybody for free. And but after the paper got printed, then it's not free anymore. So that's money is behind the scene. So that's mainly the concern of publisher, not the main. It's not the concern of editor or editorial board. It's about the publisher's profit. They want to make money, right?
Right.
Because
some journals we have to pay for open access before they go to have to pay.
Yeah, after your paper got published in print, then you need to pay this if you want to cut a copy of.
The author doesn't have to pay for open. And yes, if the author has to pay to publish in open access way.
In some journals, the author can pay. I think IEEE you have options. You can pay for $2,000 or something. And then your paper can be open access. concept come from the author.
Okay.
I think this is not not our editor decision. It's more like publisher. How that makes the most money. For example, IIE Transactions, they decided some best paper awardee, that kind of paper will put into public, open access. The reason they want this one is the people can see IIE Transactions has some good papers, and then people will buy the others.
Yeah, we have a list on the website of most cited papers. And usually you can get those, you can read those for free, even if you're not a subscriber. We have had a list of papers that were most frequently downloaded from the electronic version. But I don't want you to get the impression that journals are viewed as a profit center. I know our journal is published by Wiley, which is a for-profit company, but nobody at Wiley yells and screams at me. The journal's not making enough money. It's really not. It's really not what we're in the business of doing. We're in the business of disseminating good science, and that's what we try to do.
Okay, we have one more question.
But you have to make money to keep it here on
Okay.
It's not free.
It's also a general question. So, because in the area of quality reliability or industrial statistics, many problems are interdisciplinary in nature or problem-driven. So when it comes to publication, so do you have any suggestion on whether we should go to some domain-specific journals or something like a methodologic journal like here we are talking about? So whether, for example, if I'm looking at reliability on power systems, do I need to do you have any suggestion whether I should submit to the electrical journals and power systems or somewhere here? How do we make such kind of decisions?
And also, for example, the biostatistics.
Yes.
And should we go for biojournals? Biojournals or go to Technometrics?
Biostatistical papers don't go to Technometrics.
Okay.
That's for sure. I'm the chair of the biostat department, but don't go to Technometrics because Technometrics, as its mission, I say, it's mainly for engineering classes. It's not for biomedical schools.
And Pete.
Yeah, I think that we get a lot of papers that could go either to the subject matter expertise journals or to quality engineering and those sorts of statistics. And we try to look at it from the perspective of readership. And I think the same paper could probably be written for two different audiences. We get a lot of papers that would require a lot of prerequisite knowledge in order for the reader to get the point. And so it's not a good fit for our journal. However, I think that paper could be rewritten, and some are, or we direct them to somewhere that's more humanitarian. We particularly like those interdisciplinary papers, and in particular, if we get ones from practitioners who you can tell this is a really good application, but didn't have the time to support with their organization to bring it to full quality for publication. We'll often match them with particularly a younger academic, someone who can take that paper, and I sort of step out as editor rather than make the introduction, and have them jointly, bring that paper back. It still goes through the same review process. There's no easy pass for that, but that's worked very well for us. It takes a lot of work, but we have some successful ones that come through that way. And that's ones that I think bridge that gap between very subject matter expertise and maybe they don't have the depth in industrial statistics to write a good article.
We get papers along the lines that you're talking about as well, along the lines of what he's talking about. And I guess my view has always been that if this is a paper that is really heavily oriented around a problem in mechanical engineering, or a problem in material science, or a problem in electrical engineering, and it has some really interesting statistical components, I want the people in those disciplines to get a better appreciation of statistics. And so very often, what I remember doing is saying, I don't think this paper has enough real statistical content for our readers to get excited. In other words, if it's a paper on heat transfer, okay, I want the people that read our journal to get enough generality out of the statistics in there that they can see how to take these tools and apply them to a different kind of problem, not necessarily a heat transfer problem, but something else. But somebody who's a mechanical engineer who lives and dies with problems of heat transfer, they could read that paper and learn a lot about how statistics can actually help them do some of the things that they do. So I'll very often say, this isn't going to appeal to a lot of our readers because it doesn't have enough, general applicability content. But gosh, you ought to send this to an ME journal, or you ought to send this to a materials journal because it's going to enlighten some of those folks. It's going to bring the great unwashed into the tent. Maybe, right? Maybe.
So actually, very similar. Just some additional comments that it depends on what kind of contribution you want to highlight. The contribution can be here and there. So you have something in mind, and if you really think the contribution will be subject area or more in general statistics methodology. The other point is that also the way you're writing. So if you want to submit this, the way you're writing will be different. The paper the journal you refer to. But sometimes I accept that apparently, of course there is some components fitting, but apparently they're writing for some other journal. Also, all the paper they refer, actually none of them from JQT. So in that way, I see that it's probably that's be rejected by some other journal, and they did not even revise it recently. That would not work.
Just one more comment. I agree with all the comments before. When you work on the research topics, you read papers, you referee on the papers you try to study. So depending on what kind of papers you study, which is relevant, and where they publish, that may be one reference to say where the work should go. And another thing, you write papers, you want to make an impact. So you hope some people read your paper and can further extend your research. So you can get a sense where the community, and you want to publish to the right journal which more people can actually read it.
Yes.
So I guess in the past, one of the advantages of as an author to submit our papers for the special issue rather than the regular editions is because the review cycle is shorter. But nowadays, recently, as all will said, the review cycle is kind of short, like less than 4 months, that's the average. So I'm wondering what is the advantage as an author to submit our paper to the special issue rather than regular editions?
For the QRI, the advantage is that there may not be a huge difference in the review cycle time, but there will be an advantage in the time to publication because we try to push the special issues out timely. And you may have a paper that goes through a 4 or 5 month review cycle and it's accepted, but it might sit on early view for another 6 months before it ever appears in print. But if it's in a special issue, it could appear in print much more quickly. So that's one advantage, at least from that's something that Arnott and I, as editors, do have some control over. Is that if we have a special issue that's basically ready, we can ask the publisher to let's accelerate this and let's move it in place of the next regular standard issue. Because we want those special issues to get out faster. Because they usually have some focused interest and you want to get them out.
Does it get advertised more as well?
Pardon me?
It gets advertised more as well?
Yes. Good point.
For our special issues, they generally are invited. It's a little different. That's not totally true, but there isn't necessarily a call for papers. And that's a guest editor who's appointed and is invited. So there's a certain, prestige in the fact that you're in that special issue and the collection. I think the other advantage of quality engineering is that we publish on such a broad
important advantage is that, for example, you yourself got one paper published in our special issue on system informatics. And if, for example, for people who are interested in system informatics, they will read the special issue first. So you see, if your paper, including the special issue, will be more publicly available, got more notice from those people. So also, you will give a invite talk tomorrow, something like that. If your paper, for example, is not included in that special issue, probably you will not have this chance. So those are the advantages.
One more thing. I think the journal won't have a special issue. The reason is the topic, the emerging area, is something important, but not conventionally typically published in the journal. That's why you need a special issue. And even if submit to a special issue, the paper you fit, the paper will be reviewed by the people who already know this area, different from general review social editors. I think that's one difference. And another one is, like you said, I mean, the impact. So you have the paper in the same area and publish, if you have good impact, this creates a new community. And this community associated with the journal, and then this make a promote some research area.
Okay, any other questions? And Dr. Montgomery mentioned that you have backlog of the papers on like at least 2 issues.
Yeah, we probably have at least 3 issues.
3 issues.
Yeah.
Does the backlog mean that you have a lot of paper like in the queue to be processed?
Well, no, that's the backlog of papers that have been accepted, that have already been typeset and approved, and they're on early review. And so if you were to get a paper accepted today at QRI, you would get the typeset version of it very quickly. That happens quite quickly before it ever gets published. But early view goes a long way to solving that problem. People they'll go on the journal website and they'll see the paper in early view. They can read it, and they can cite it because it has a DOI number, and so you can cite it. You'll get credit for that citation. So it's not all bad.
You need
backlog thing, and you actually need a backlog. You need some backlog.
Yeah, it will make you very nervous if there is no backlog.
Yeah.
I don't even know what was published in the next issue.
Yeah.
JQT also have 2 issues.
Pete mentioned that the QE went through sort of a revitalization, 10 years ago. Yeah, and I was involved in the resuscitation process, and basically the journal had no backlog. There were no accepted papers. The journal was going to die, and it was because there had been, let's say, a failure in the editorial process, which is never be fair. And so a group of people gathered at my house on a long weekend in Arizona, and we figured out how to resurrect the journal. But it was scary. I mean, the journal could have gone out of business. And so editors get very nervous when they don't have at least an issue or 2 in the queue, right? I mean, I would be scared to death if I didn't have at least 1 issue in the queue, because you never know. I mean, you may hit a period where everything that comes in as a submission is awful, just awful.
We have about 1 year back, much longer than
We have about 1 issue back.
1 to 2 is healthy.
So with long backlog, have you considered increasing the number of issues per year?
Well, we discussed that option. We can increase the number of pages into the pages. That's associated with the cost of the readers as well. If the people subscribe to the journal, then the price will also be higher, something like that. So a lot of issues are related. So then we finally we discussed we decided to increase the number of pages temporarily, only for a number of years, trying to reduce the backlog to half a year. We think that half a year backlog is at the healthy level. It's a good thing, as Dr. just mentioned.
Yeah, that's acceptable.
Yeah, acceptable.
Yes, that's acceptable.
Just 1 year seems a bit long.
Yeah,
Three issues.
Yes, it's not bad. It's good for the authors, and it's not good for the journal, because particularly if people don't have a way to read the article prior to publication, because then the author will not necessarily see citations to the book, and researchers like to have their work cited, right? and of course those citations affect the journal's impact. And you don't want to be publishing stuff that's outside range to have it in your impact factor calculation. So half a year is, I think, reasonable. I think it's reasonable. Anything more than that, I think that's a little scary.
Okay, any further questions from the audience? Oh, yes, please.
This is really more of a comment, but this is addressing the question of perspectives from academic and non-academic review. I used to be on an AE for Technometrics, and I work at Los Alamos National Labs. I'm not an academic, and so I felt really strongly when I got in that position that I was going to really try to help that situation. And every paper I got, I send it out to kind of a diverse set of reviewers. But I did find that it was very hard to find people in non-academic settings that had both the time and interest to provide me with the kind of input I needed. And it was really difficult. So I guess I just encourage those of you who are from different perspectives to, if you have the opportunity to review, to accept it if you can. And maybe we need to do more to encourage people from different job types to participate in the editorial and review process.
But there's no reward in academia for reviewing papers. Yeah, that's right. You just do it. You just do it because it's tribal custom. There is no reward.
In the industry, it's not your highest priority.
Right.
Yeah, it's not the projects you're working on. That's
you do it out of the kindness of your heart.
But you learn a lot doing it too. There's a real benefit to getting involved.
Yeah, I honestly think every time I referee a paper, I learn something. Sometimes it's what not to do.
I think on average, if you submit one paper, you should referee 3 papers, and this is like a balance. So.
But of course, part of that is you have to be asked to do it too. So.
That's true.
Okay, any further questions from the audience? Okay, I have a quick question. So now we have 5 journals. They are all focusing on research problems, research articles related to quality, reliability, and also system informatics and data analytics. So if any of the attendees they are going to submit a paper and related to reliability or quality, they can select 1 out of 5. So can you comment how we can fit into the scope of each specific journal and also the difference between journals and any specific difference between the journals?
That's a very good question. I think, relatively speaking, compared to the other 4 journals, Technometrics might be more mathematical oriented. Although in statistics, Technometrics is considered as a journal in applied statistics, very applied. But compared to other 4 journals, we are still more mathematical oriented, and we need, as I mentioned, justification is very important. And so, if you see that your paper are more mathematical oriented, consider Technometrics.
And I would say that I'm probably the other end of the spectrum, quality engineering practitioner focus. And for example, I've mentioned the proofs and limits. So any of that we would put in appendix. It would be part of the paper. We would be less mathematical, more immediate application and practitioner.
And I think QREI is probably in the middle. We don't have a problem with papers that have sophisticated mathematics, but we want to see some practical application in the paper. And I I don't mean some made up problem, I mean some real problem. And that's really kind of, it's kind of a deal breaker for me. If you really don't have real application, I'm not much interested, no matter how elegant it is.
Talk about mathematical level, say Technometrics and QSR in the middle, and we'll probably like the first quarter. My definition probably will be different. And then we'll quite emphasize on the readability. So no matter how the practical impact and also methodology both are important. We, in addition to that, the readability, I need to imagine that the people, both practitioner and technician, can read that and understand. That's actually one of the things.
I think my suggestion is different. When you work on paper, not you finish the paper, think about where to submit. You should really read papers of all the journals. Read papers, read almost all papers. And ask my PhD students to read every issue, of these two journals, including electrical reliability. With that paper published, if a new issue come out, read the introduction, conclusion to all papers, the related ones in more detail on the technical part. So if you read all the journals, when you write your paper, you know where to submit. If you read all the journals, you still don't know where to submit. I think that's a problem.
I think it's really important to read the target journal. Look at a few issues in the target journal and get a sense of the scope of things that are published, and the level and the style.
Yeah, I can give examples of IIE transactions. So IIE transactions work on IIE problems, and the quality reliability is, we use statistics, and also we use control theory, and we also use optimization to solve these IIE problems. I think those kind of journals, papers are welcome. If really heavily on statistics, applied statistics, I think Technometrics is probably better place to go. If work on quality, methodology, generic case, like a certain quality technique, classification, detection, probably GQT is better in my mind. And if two practitioners with a real case study, real procedures, people read this one, they can work on this one. I would recommend quality engineering. Basically, that's in my mind.
Well, and remember that these are not the only places that you can submit this kind of work. There's reliability engineering system safety, which you mentioned, which is a very nice topic. There's the RSS journals, and in particular, Series C, Applied Statistics, is a very broad journal that publishes a lot of really interesting things that are probably a little outside the scope of what we do, but they would be a very good outlet for the work. And there's also the Journal of Applied Statistics, which is not RSSC, it's a different journal. And there are a couple of others that are, I think, very good. QTQM. There's some very good journals out there that publish things sort of in the same vein, but also a broader scope and a broader range of things. And you want to look at those as options as well. And maybe what you're doing isn't a perfect fit for any of them.
I think the best practice is read more papers. Read more papers not only on the technical stuff, but also style. So the motivation, the problem description, discussions. And if you read more, especially when you decide you want a particular journal you want to submit, you should read more some particular journal papers.
Figure out what has to be done to get in that journal.
I was just going to say from my own experience 15 years ago, my dissertation actually published in 4 of these journals, all of my dissertation, not in IIE Transactions, but I think that is something that you can craft and target, as we've heard many times here, is reading the types of articles that are in there and where they fit.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, no further questions. Let's thank the panelists for their insights and the comments.
see you again. Last time I saw you was in Singapore.